Hollywood getting rare praise from conservatives for its effort to tell the untold story of Chappaquiddick, a story some argue that the Kennedy family has sought to silence until now. On July 18, 1969, the late Senator Ted Kennedy was involved in a car accident on Martha's Vineyard that ended up killing 28-year-old passenger Mary Jo Kopechne. The infamous Chappaquiddick incident, named for the rural, remote southeast corner of the island where the crash occurred, happened when Kennedy drove his Oldsmobile off a narrow wooden bridge into a small creek after a day of partying. Although accounts of what actually happened that night conflict, it seems Kennedy alerted his friends about the accident, but failed to tell police until the next morning, far too late to save Kopechne, whose family members have spoken out over the years.
I believe there was damn little truth in what he told them. He told them what they wanted to hear, or what he needed to tell them to cover his ass.
Kennedy ultimately pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of an accident and got a suspended sentence. Kennedy passed away without clarifying the many unanswered questions, and his loyalists all but remained silent about the incident. And for the most part, Hollywood steered clear of the story.
They were always a Hollywood-type family, and so Hollywood always played along with them. Until now.
It's a fair movie, it's balanced. But
Mark Chardy is the executive producer of Chappaquiddick in theaters on April 6th.
But it certainly takes Ted to task for this.
This country has a deep connection to the Kennedy name, and that is a valuable thing, gentlemen.
Chappaquiddick tells the Kopechne-Kennedy story over the course of 1 week, when there was another major moment in American history.
That's one small step for man.
JFK's greatest achievement was, and Ted's biggest failing, all happened in that week, and it probably helped, get cover for the story.
I had 3 generations of advisors up my ass trying to convince me to run.
Nevertheless, Kennedy's presidential aspirations were dashed after Kopechne's death. But the Lion of the Senate ultimately served nearly 47 years in the upper house. And even today, some Hollywood A-listers reportedly would not take the leading role, ultimately played by Australian Jason Clarke. So why would Hollywood tackle the aura of Camelot after all this time? Let's bring in Fox News contributor and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, what do you make of this getting made? I mean, a lot of folks have said even if you tried to make this 10, 15 years ago, it wouldn't have happened. So why now?
I think a lot of it is that America now realizes that 50 years ago there was an incredible tragedy in which someone got treated differently because of their last name, because of the wealth, the power, the influence, and the fact the media wanted to cover for the Kennedy family. I don't know that that would happen today, but there are still those moments in which people do get different treatment than somebody who doesn't have the last name or all of the wealth or the power or the media cover. And it's really one of the reasons that a lot of Americans are just utterly frustrated with the institutions of power, because they don't believe that they play the same way for people of power as they do for just an ordinary person. Here's a simple question. What would have been the case had Mary Jo Kopechne been driving the car and Ted Kennedy was the one who suffocated in a pocket of air and suffered for hours? Because that's what happened. She didn't just drown. She was in a pocket of air, they later realized under the autopsy, and it was hours, and it was 10 hours later before Ted Kennedy ever told the police what happened. It's just a horrible tragedy. Reverse the role and ask yourself, do you think that they would have said to Mary Jo Kopechne, we're going to give you a probated sentence?
Right. Well, here is what the producer of the film says. We talked with him, Mark Chardy. Here's what he said about how he thinks this would play out today.
Had something like this happened, it would be a frenzy. I don't think he'd be off, the front page or the news cycle for more than, 5 minutes. So I think the pressure would have been different.
So why do you think it was different then? Do you think that the media was more protective of public figures, whether they would have been Republicans or Democrats? What's changed in the interim?
Well, there was certainly a protection about the Kennedys. I mean, there was so many widespread stories about President Kennedy's affairs, not years before he was president, but while he was president in the White House. So those kind of stories just got covered up. People didn't know about the fact that he had Addison's disease. That would have been a huge news story if it were happening today. So we're living in a different culture. 24-hour cable news is a part of it, but it's a different time. There's no question about it.
Well, conservative radio host Howie Carr. He also wrote a piece for the Boston Herald, I believe, in his review where he talked about the fact that a lot has changed in the interim. This is what he says about how the Kennedys have been treated over the years.
You might say that the myth that was concocted around the Kennedys from the time of World War II on to almost the present time was the first example of fake news. It was just total mythology.
I mean, Governor, he claims there were other producers who tried to tell the story over the years and they never worked in Hollywood again. That's his claim.
I think he's right. I think the fact that a lot of Hollywood A-listers turned down this movie is indicative that there is still a bias. Nobody wants to say something really negative about Democratic icons, but you don't have any problems getting actors to want to play in roles that would be very, very, let's say, derisive of Richard Nixon or of other Republican figures.
All right, I wonder who's going to play President Trump, because you know the movies are coming. Governor, thank you for weighing in from Florida. Good to see you.
Thank you.